What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good week. After these past 2 weeks of hearing about the ROG Ally and everything it's capable of, and with a ton of videos and reviews comparing the Steam Deck to the ROG Ally, I just wanted to make a different type of video to show what the Steam Deck is capable of. Now, the Steam Deck might not be up to par with the clock speeds and wattage that the ROG Ally provides, but there is one secret weapon, a sort of secret sauce that the Steam Deck has that most handhelds, CPUs and GPUs do not have, and that is power efficiency. Valve has worked painstakingly long hours to perfect the battery life and performance of the Steam Deck to the point that it works like a dream. Now, I know I talk a lot about the shader cache, and yes, that is still a problem, but they're going to fix it soon. And Lord knows how complicated that fix is going to be for people like me that have already downloaded about 500 gigabytes of shader cache. But until that day comes, today I decided to make the Steam Deck's ultimate power saver and performance guide. And I kind of want this to be a series because I see a lot of channels out there showing reviews for a specific video game and kind of milking that sort of formula to give you the stuff you actually want, like how well does the game perform and what's the battery life on the Steam Deck. Usually they give metrics that are comparable, sort of. There are some YouTubers like The Fox that provide a gigaton of metrics, and it's just so much. I figure just make the most accessible guide just to showcase how easy it is to get the most out of your battery and performance from the Steam Deck. And I'm going to start with Forza Horizon 4. I honestly like it better than Forza Horizon 5, but that's just me. And I was able to get 3 hours and 10 minutes out of this game with incredible performance for the battery life. I just simply went into the Steam Deck settings, and all you have to do is press the 3 dots on the right, scroll down to the battery options, and you should see something that shows TDP, which is the thermal power provided to the Steam Deck. And for Forza Horizon 4, I just put that all the way down to 5. And I made sure to keep the resolution at 720p because that game is nothing without its visuals. But you can put it to a lower resolution if you want to save more battery and just bump up the FSR, but I feel like 720p looks the best with this game. And I kept the frame rate at 40 FPS, so I just went to that gauge on the right in the battery option settings, and I just cranked that FPS meter all the way down to 40, and the game runs so well, set to a TDP of 5 watts. And for the most part, I don't touch the GPU frequency because it tends to mess with the picture. And so every time you mess with that, it sort of locks you out of the game until you go back. It's some kind of weird glitch that's still prevalent in Steam Deck, but I'm pretty sure that's just what happens when you mess with the GPU frequency. So try not to touch that. Leave it at auto, which is the default GPU setting. It'll just adjust to the TDP that you set the Steam Deck to. And it's really strange. I don't see a lot of people talking about setting the TDP all the way down that much. And I feel like this is the best feature of the Steam Deck, and I've been doing it for quite some time to get about 3 hours out of most games, which is very close to the Nintendo Switch's first model's battery. But lastly, for Forza Horizon 4, I just leave everything at medium settings, and sometimes it gets me more than 3 hours and 10 minutes. I think the most I had was 3 hours and 20, which is still 10 more minutes of game time. And strangely enough, putting the TDP all the way down when you're at a very low battery percentage, it helps to get consistent power at the end, because usually while leaving the TDP on auto, just like the GPU frequency, it just assumes you need a certain amount of power. So when you're at about 15%, that power just doesn't resonate with the battery very well and causes a crash or a shutdown. So leaving the TDP low actually helps with this issue. And there are other games on this list that use different wattage. So I'm just going to go over a few more. So if you're jumping into these games that you wanted to play or buy on the Steam Deck, you know exactly what type of settings are best. The next game on the list is Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, of course, and I was able to get a minimum of 3 hours on this title, with the TDP set to 5 watts, the resolution at 720p, because there are very specific targets and things you have to spot in this game. It is a stealth game, so setting it to a higher resolution like 720p or even 800p is more recommended for this title. And because there's so many moving objects in this game, setting the FPS to 40 Hz did provide the smoothest experience for me with the best battery. And surprisingly, I left all of the settings on high so the game could look extra crispy with the most details displayed. After that would be Atomic Heart. I managed to get this game to 3 hours and 10 minutes. Now, I covered this game in a past video, and there are no settings in this game. It's all default forced settings for the Steam Deck specifically. I don't think we're going to deal with that with the ROG Ally. It's gonna let you do stuff. But with this, you don't need to mess with the settings because they don't exist. But leaving the TDP to 5 watts actually gets you a smooth performance because this game can actually go up to 120 hertz if you have a monitor with that FPS. But leaving it to that TDP is fine, along with the resolution of 720p because you're forced to. I would personally put it a little lower, but the game gets 3 hours and 10 minutes with low TDP. And as for the frames, I leave it at 40 hertz because it is a first-person mode game, so you're gonna need the accuracy. And regardless of the no settings thing, I actually played this game for about 3 hours and still had about 10% of battery. And the next game on the list is a little tricky because it is an FPS game, but it is extremely fast, and that is Ghost Runner. I got this game to max out at 2 hours and 45 minutes, and considering what happens in the game and how short it can be, that's not bad at all. I set the TDP to 7, the resolution to 720p, and the FPS to 45 hertz because that 40 hertz is just a little weird. There is sort of a latency with 40 hertz in some games, especially games as accurate and precise as Ghost Runner. So you're going to need to bump it up to 45 hertz. And I set everything to medium so I could get that extra 5 minutes. I think setting everything to a mix of high to medium settings like the motion blur in this game will eat up a lot of battery. So putting the motion blur particularly to medium or low settings is recommended, and it'll save you a lot of battery. Now, naturally, the next game on the list is Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I was actually able to get 3 hours out of this game. I set the TDP to 6, the resolution to 720p, as usual, because the game kind of looks ugly when you put it a little lower due to the settings. And the FPS, before I get ahead of myself, was set to 40 hertz, because there's not much accuracy going on in this game besides shooting slow zombies. And the settings was set to a mix of medium and high, usually stuff like shadows and motion blur set to medium, but I don't think you need to put it exactly how I set it. It's all about personal preference, but usually not going higher than high settings is a good thing for the battery. But specifically, if you want to get more frames out of this game, put the render mode to interlaced. That will help greatly with FPS and battery life. And after that, we have the classic Call of Duty Black Ops 1. I managed to get 3 hours and 5 minutes on this game, and if you see a trend, 3 hours is definitely the target of what I'm trying to reach here with consistent performance. Because a lot of people talk about the Steam Deck lasts an hour and 30 minutes, but that is 100% false. It lasts double that at least, even with newer titles like Resident Evil 2 Remake. But for Call of Duty Black Ops 1, the TDP was of course set to 5, the resolution to 720p, and the FPS to 45 hertz. Because just like with Ghost Runner, this game is all about precision and you cannot do that with 40 hertz. The settings were at default, so I didn't really touch the settings because I wanted to reach 3 hours. And the next game on the list is Batman Arkham City. I managed to get 3 hours and 10 minutes with this title. Now, I am positive that you can get a lot more. It's just, I love the aesthetic in this game, so I left the settings to high. And it's a superhero title, so you need to scope out the area. So I set the TDP to 5, the resolution to 800p, so you can view more of the city, and the FPS to 40 hertz. Because there's not much accuracy going on. Batman sort of auto targets anyway. But yes, about 3 hours and 10 minutes, I'm positive if you put the game to medium settings, you'll be able to get another 10 to 15 minutes out of this title. And next is a bit of a strange game, Alan Wake American Nightmare. I managed to get a solid 3 hours out of this, but I had to set the TDP to 6 watts just to get that consistent performance. The resolution is again at 720p because this, like a lot of other games on this list, isn't really much if not gorgeous looking. I set the FPS to 40 hertz because it just feels smooth. This game has very low latency for some reason, so 40 hertz pretty much feels like 60. Just in this title. I think it's because you're so far away from Alan Wake, and that generally happens when you play third-person mode games. But of course, because of the aesthetics, I left the settings on high. Now, the next game on this list was a bit tricky as well. It was Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition with the added Duke Nukem DLC, of course. And surprisingly, I only managed to get 2 hours and 45 minutes out of this game. I just blame optimization for it, but I had to set the TDP to 7, just like with Ghost Runner. But the resolution is at 800p because the game looks amazing with that. The FPS is at 45 hertz, and the settings are at medium with low motion blur. So we've gone through 9 games. but I have an extra one. I was going to leave this for the next video in this potential series, but why not just add it now? And the final bonus game is Doom Eternal. I was actually able to get a full 3 hours out of this title, but this was the trickiest of them all. I had to set the TDP to a strange 6 watts, the resolution to 864 by 486, with the Steam Deck's internal FSR enabled. And the FPS was set to 45 Hz, and it was actually a mix of high and ultra settings, usually with settings like post-processing and shadows set to high. And the resolution scaling was set to static at 100%. And personally at these settings, it plays a lot better than the Switch version, with cleaner visuals and similar battery life to the original V1 model. But yeah, that's been my guide to the best power saving and performance settings that I personally use on the go if I'm taking long trips. But besides that, the only thing I could really recommend is bringing a power bank with you. The extra power bank I have that's allowed in an airport is the 85 watt Insignia from Best Buy, and it has just under the allowed milliamp hour of 26,800. So if you want a good power bank that's on the ready just in case those 3 hours fly by too fast, then you could just stop by at your local Best Buy and get one of those. But if you're not going to an airport and are still looking for a reliable power bank, there is one sold at Amazon that's 100 watts, so it's pretty much future-proof, and it's called the MagCube P30. And I believe the manufacturer is spelled AOHI. Pronounce that as you will. And it is 30,000 milliamp hours with 100 watts of battery charging power. And it has a USB-C port as well as a USB-A port. I believe the USB-A port is the latest, which is 3.2, and this battery goes up to 3.6 volts. But yeah, this is mainly the power bank that I use outside of airports until they can allow potentially bigger batteries. Maybe we won't see that anytime soon. And I even use this power bank on my Alienware X14, so it's able to reach FPSs of 120 with this power bank charging. So yeah, definitely give MagCube P30 a look up because I think they're extremely underrated. And another power bank manufacturer that's overrated is Anker. For some reason, the wattages on their portable batteries are very specific, and the 3 that I tried didn't really work for my Steam Deck. So yeah, this has been the power saving and performance guide. Let me know if you want to see another one, because I'll be happy to test out more games. And surprisingly, with a good amount of these games on the list, I was able to test them with just a single battery life. By the time I was done testing 3, I was at 80%. But then I had to recharge to get accurate numbers. But yeah, thanks for watching the video. And if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys have a good one. Later.